Andy Murray, what roster trade would you make between WWE and AEW in 2025?
It's tough, this, isn't it? Because we are at a level where the top two promotions in America, the unparalleled levels of talent on both of these, in different ways in some sorts, but like both rosters are absolutely jam-packed with people who are really, really good at either one thing, two things, three things, or four things. There's very few duds anywhere on the roster. So with that in mind, I am trading Chris Jericho for a big box of puke. That's not my actual entry. Actually, I started off, I was going to do Britt Baker versus Io Sky, but I thought it was a bit one-sided. Then I heard Michael Hamflett's suggestion. Tag teams. Tag teams is where we're going with this one. It was touched on in another Talking Heads video that we recorded earlier today, but the Young Bucks, they are so checked out, brother. They are so fed up. You can read it on their faces. Yes, they've had some very good matches in 2024, but creatively, the whole takeover angle, it fell to pieces. They come out and they just don't look like they're as committed or anywhere near as committed to the bit as they were in even 2022. Certainly far removed from their 2021 vintage. And, you know, it's a shame that the good ship Okada has had to go down with them. He's still there, but whatever. So I would send the Young Bucks over to WWE for a fresh start, fresh lick of paint, something new completely. Maybe it'll rejuvenate them. It'll make them even richer, so maybe that'll make them even happier. I have no idea. And what I would do is I would trade them for the Street Profits. Now, recently, the Street Profits, they spent about a month going, maybe we'll leave the Fed, and it was, you know, it wasn't anything other than to raise a bit of interest in their angle, and they've had some interesting character directions. Like the SmackDown Tag Division has been definitely built up since the arrival of the Motor City Machine Guns and the DIY heel turn and all that stuff. So the Street Profits are in a good position. That being said, I think that they would be the tonic that revitalizes the AEW tag team division. I think that we spend so much time online as internet wrestling fans pining for a Montez Ford singles push, and that should happen someday. I think that man's a superstar. But these guys together, they're an awesome tag team. They've been fun from day one, and like to watch their gradual improvement with contrasting styles as well. They both work a very, very quick pace, but Angelo Dawkins rarely gets his flowers, and he's a very, very solid power wrestler in his own right. And I think that if you brought them into that division with their fast action-first style and their personalities, they've got the character stuff down. If you pop them in that division, made them a centerpiece, and built everything else around them, from the Outrunners to FDR to the Butcher, and bring back the Blade soon, hopefully. Good luck with your injury. And everyone else, I think that would be exactly what you need to jump this stupid broken tag division right up the bum.
So a roster trade I would make in 2025 for AEW, WWE, vice versa. I mean, it's completely selfish. I mean, it would be, because why would I make your change of roster? I mean, what do I get out of that? So I would take an AJ Styles, who I do believe to be one of the best wrestlers ever. And if he wants to stay in WWE, he still has loads of good matches and he still has loads to offer. He really does. See, people sometimes forget how influential AJ Styles was in the modern wrestling game. And I'd switch him for Miro. Now, the reason I would do this is because I want to see Miro back on my TV, and at the moment he's in the Outer Lands. So maybe as a way to tempt AEW to let him out of his contract, to say, we can give you AJ Styles. And the reason I like that is because then Miro's back in WWE, and I think this version of WWE would treat him in the way that I've always wanted him to be treated, and that excites me. And the reason I want AJ Styles in AEW is not because I think he's done in WWE, because I want to see AJ Styles versus Kenny Omega. I want to see AJ Styles versus Jon Moxley. I want to see AJ Styles versus the Young Bucks in some form, give him a tag team partner. I want to see AJ Styles versus MJF. I want to see AJ Styles versus Adam Cole, and so on and so forth. It's just that classic thing that because he's not over there, you start fantasy and dream booking these matches. And if you want to send all those people over to WWE so you can do the AJ Styles matches, that would be great. But I don't know how much longer he's got in him. I mean, he's closer to the end of his career than the start of his career. Of course, he'd be the first person to tell you that. And even if we don't get those things, you know what I mean? He's given us so much over the last 25 years, whatever it is, that it's perfectly cool. But it would also be excellent from a fantasy booking point of view to get those matches, especially in AJ Styles versus a Kenny Omega. I know they've kind of both been through the wars and stuff and injuries in 2024, but they really do represent that outside of WWE influence that only a few people have. Like most people have to go to WWE to sort of make their mark, but those two guys did it on the outside and helped revolutionize wrestling at the same time. So that really is like a mini dream match of mine. Do I think we'll see it? Probably not. Is that a shame? Yes. But at the same time, aren't we lucky we got all this goodness to begin with?
I thought long and hard about this one, and it's...
No, you didn't.
But it's a bit of a weird one, this. But from WWE to AEW, I'm suggesting Bayley in exchange for The Outrunners, and I know what you're thinking, that doesn't seem like a fair exchange, but I'm sure AEW will plug the gap left like the youngest men alive, so don't worry about that one. Look, I love Bayley. I don't want her to leave WWE, but I would just love to see what that looks like. You know, the amount of people who, when AEW were on the rise, it was speculated like, what would so-and-so be like if they were in All Elite Wrestling? That conversation's kind of gone away, understandably, with the way it's sort of fallen off, but I do think Bayley would be a fascinating case study and someone who could be a J-Ward catalyst for this sort of thing happening more often, because we've had a lot of jumps to AEW from WWE and not many of them have really hit the ground running as we were hoping. So I think Bayley would improve an already far improved AEW women's division. You can already fantasy book 5-10 different people you'd love to see her wrestling against in AEW. And as we thought we were going to get when Mercedes went to AEW, and I'm leaning more and more into your suggestion, Sid, that this might be a Warner thing rather than an AEW thing. Maybe they could be the difference maker that makes AEW put more women's matches on their flagship television show. But regardless, I think it could just be a really fun change of scenery, and who knows, maybe she'll get a good entrance theme and some Bayley buddies back. And the exchange for the Outrunners, not to main roster WWE, but to my beloved NXT, which somehow would get even better with the Outrunners. Like, you can't sit here and tell me, you and I and all of us enjoy the Outrunners on AEW television, on Ring of Honor, but nothing's going to happen really with them there. They are going to be the sort of fourth team in a fatal four-way as we saw them at Full Gear, I think it was. I love them. I think they're so entertaining, and I think NXT is a legitimate perfect fit for a team like that. You could easily see them cutting promos left, right and centre. A bit like Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange did in their time in NXT, and I could quite possibly see a title run and maybe even a big move to the main roster, because they could just get so beloved by the fans who like to get behind people for catchphrases and things like that, more so than necessarily being the greatest wrestlers. If they can get that Predator elbow down at the point where they actually hit it together, I'm predicting big things for them.
Nice.
My thing with WWE is, why sign certain wrestlers when you are not going to promote the best version of that wrestler? It kind of drives me mad when someone like Dragon Lee is put on Raw. Now, Dragon Lee, not that if you're a WWE fan, and there's nothing wrong with that, there really isn't, but if you're primarily a WWE fan, and we know from WWE fans that they don't really necessarily like to venture out elsewhere, that's not true in every case, but it is often the case, you'd never know how good Dragon Lee is. You'd never know that this dude has got a low pay or a suicide dive that actually somehow conspires to rival Darby Allin's. He's a complete rocket. He's still a decent age. I reckon he could still go to an absolute, that sort of Takeshita, Ospreay, Omega, that super worker level. WWE's got one in Dragon Lee. Now, I know that's not necessarily, it feels like a blanket cynical assessment. If you look at how fast Nathan Frazier goes in NXT, maybe there is this sort of embrace of the fast, just total, unadulterated, unashamed banger in one arm of WWE, at least in NXT, but they never really let Dragon Lee be Dragon Lee, and it just, why not? He's not the best promo. He's not larger than life as a character. You might as well use the best version of him as a compliment to what else you have on the show with your big melodramatic swings with the bloodline, etc. So it just drives me nuts that they can't let Dragon Lee be Dragon Lee or get over as Dragon Lee. So I would put Dragon Lee in AEW. He's had a match there, won, and guess what? They let him be Dragon Lee. He almost killed Kenny Omega, and I love Kenny Omega, but it was outstanding. And I would trade him for Adam Cole, because Adam Cole at this point has lost his sharpness as that great wrestler that he once kind of was, if you like that sort of melodramatic thing. He's lost his juice, he's lost his aura, he's lost that presentation. All of these words you might have noticed build to the point that I'm about to make next. WWE embraces and is excellent at that sort of thing. I think I'm not the only person in this video who has mentioned that Adam Cole needs to go to WWE, but it always felt like one signing too many in 2021, but you bargained for it because we were greedy. It never really worked out from there, and he's still so talented nonetheless that he headlined Wembley Stadium. You know, he could do something, I just don't think he can do something where he is right now.
Hey man, the curious say this to me. I would have happily loved to trade CM Punk back to AEW, just to imagine the glorious chaos that would come. But away from that, I'm going to go and swap Bayley for Jamie Hayter. Both talents are fantastic, but as of this recording, both feel just totally lost in their respective promotions. For Bayley, she feels like she's done pretty much all there is to do in WWE. She became one of the biggest stars in NXT. She's had major success on both Raw and SmackDown, as a babyface and as a heel, as a singles actor, as part of a tag team or faction. She's won the Royal Rumble. She's won titles on the biggest stage of them all, WrestleMania, and she's worked with like pretty much everyone. What do you do with Bayley now? What's next for her? How can you keep her fresh? How can you top what's been before? Of course, there is the prospect of NXT talent making a jump to the main roster, and that would give somebody like Bayley fresh opponents to work with, fresh people to sink her teeth into. In fact, if Roxanne Perez, for example, is to head to the main roster and stay as the heel character she's been playing for the last little while, Bayley would be a perfect first rivalry for the Prodigy. But the point is, it's tricky to do something with Bayley that's not been done before with her. Now, in the case of Jamie Hayter, man, Tony Khan, what is going on there, brother? I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, having been missing for over a year, it was absolutely amazing to hear Jamie Hayter's music hit at Wembley Stadium for All Out 2024. Even if that return was bafflingly, it took place on the 0 hour pre-show rather than the main card. I still don't know why. Still, Jamie Hayter came out, kicked all the ass, some of that ass kicking, nicely lining up with the beats of her banging entrance theme. That was really cool. And then there's been barely anything to note done with one of the very best talents in all of AEW, which is, sadly, that's something you could say about so many AEW stars, of course. But at a time when the booking and output of the AEW women's division has been, let's be honest, been hit and miss. And to be honest, more misses than hits. You've got Mercedes Moné's wonky run. Camille has been made to look like a total chump so quickly on. The never explained Chris Statlander babyface turn at a time when Stat was doing phenomenal heel work. The handling of Britt Baker since she returned. The handling of Saraya. The lack of interest in the AEW women's title in the aftermath of Tony Storm. That time was Tony Storm's great run. So yeah, you'd think the return of a fit and healthy Jamie Hayter would be perfect to help the women's roster. But again, the problems with AEW, it's not the women's roster per se. It's not the talent themselves. The roster is stacked. Thunder Rosa, Willow Nightingale, the brilliant Serena Deeb, the vastly underutilized Hikaru Shida. Surely you'd think the much anticipated return of Jamie Hayter, that could not be fumbled. But no, Jamie was put into a feud with Penelope Ford, then was featured on Collision, a show that has been doing awful numbers lately. I mean, there is the logic that someone like Jamie Hayter might stir up interest in Collision, or the opposite happens, where the smaller visibility of Collision dents someone's star power when they're not seen on, the bigger shows, Dynamite and the big pay-per-views. So yes, Bayley feels like she desperately needs a fresh environment. And Jamie Hayter, she simply deserves so much better than what she's got right now. So swap them round. Hayter can thrive and become a major star on a major scale in WWE, and Bayley gets a bunch of fresh faces to work with. Plus, she's shown so many times before that she always does excellent work with Mercedes, whether that's with her or whether that's against her. So yeah, get it done.
So the WWE AEW roster trade in 2025 that I want to see involves the Street Profits and the Young Bucks. Okay, so hear me out. We're going to start with the Street Profits. So we've heard a lot of rumblings, a lot of rumors, and statements even from the people themselves. The Street Profits suggesting that they're not very happy in WWE right now, but it's since kind of been reported that this was just really an attempt to get attention on them, and they're very much locked into WWE for the foreseeable. But in my fictional universe, I'm kind of done with them in WWE. I love them as a team. I think they're great. They're so charismatic. They're great workers, but they've just done everything you can really do in WWE as a tag team. And apart from splitting them up, and I don't really think I want to see that right now, I don't think there's much more you can do with them. So pick them up, drop them in AEW, and instantly you got all the new matchups. I'd love to see the FTR match. I don't think we saw the Revival match much in WWE, if ever, so that'd be cool. That'd be a good clash of styles. The Private Party match would be fun. Like there's a lot of different matches within that division straight away that kind of jump out and go, something new for the Street Profits. Yeah, I'm in. And it'd probably give them that creative freedom. See, like what they're going to do with that creative freedom, what they can explore and what they can bring out of themselves as characters and as performers. I'd be so intrigued by that. I think it'd be a good move for them. Change of scene, great stuff. So yeah, you go over there. As for the Young Bucks, it's a little bit the same in a sense of I think they've done everything they can do in AEW twice over at this point, and I can't see a compelling new direction for them. They might completely swerve me and prove me wrong. I hope they do, but I don't know where we go here. If they come back as baby faces, I've seen it and I'm a bit like, I don't know. It just doesn't set my heart on fire. Whereas picking him up and dropping him in WWE. I want to see what it looks like. I've said it before in these kind of videos. Sometimes you just want to see what it looks like, and that I think will just look so weird in my mind, just seeing the young bucks, like the guys who obviously like Cody just help start AEW, just seeing them in a WWE ring, it'd just be odd, like wrestling against the Usos and DIY, and like that'd be bananas for me in that presentation. And I think it's something, I might just be speaking for them, they might not feel this way at all, but I do feel like there must be a part of them that wants to tick that box, you know what I mean, to say they've done it. And they don't have to do it forever, they can just do it for a couple of years, then go back to AEW and go, hey, we did it, and we're back. Like returning heroes, they could do that, that'd be great. But just for a while, I want to see it, just want to see what it looks like. I think it'd be fun, and sometimes that's just enough. So in my universe, we're going to do that swap. It's going to happen, right?
The roster trade I would make, and we'll probably all make a version of this point, is one that we can just make in spite of contracts and the reality of how it actually all works. I find this question quite difficult when we're asked about sort of dream matches between wrestlers or who should jump or whatever, because I don't think either company is in a great place for those kind of talent jumps right now. WWE has done a great job of establishing this roster full of stars, and so many are like yet to hit the potential within that system. Meanwhile, AEW's roster is too full in reality, and the more wrestlers that it signs, the more wrestlers that have to go to the back of various queues, and then you've just got a bunch of queues and nobody seems to get to the front of it. It doesn't feel like a time where that many trades are that appealing. So what I've done is I've just looked at two, and this is with no disrespect to either of the performers, it's just the reality of how the business works that kind of feel creatively like busted flushes within the organisations that could just do with that breath of fresh air. Sige, yourself, has pitched Adam Cole, and so have I, and they're largely for the same reasons. One of my absolute favourite wrestlers ever presented by Triple H's NXT during a time where I didn't even love that NXT as much as prior versions of it. Adam Cole felt like this project that could not go wrong in NXT and yet was destined to fail in WWE. So the AEW move almost made sense. It was almost like he couldn't be tainted by Vince McMahon's main roster WWE, and now look at things. Look who is in the chair, and look who is the exact person that could make Adam Cole this potential megastar again. I don't know if it works for definite. We don't know like physically exactly what Adam Cole can still offer compared to what he did at his peak in NXT. However, he's got so much of the intangibles, so many of the things that you need beyond the matches themselves, that I'd just like to see if there is one mega main roster run in Adam Cole. The question, I think, is far more difficult, because it's who do you want to lift out of WWE and who do you potentially want to see not get lost in the shuffle, and the only person I could summon right now is Ridge Holland. I know that's not the most appealing signing for AEW.
Yes, right. Yes,
I can't exactly promise big things like sort of wine and roses and gravy of a Ridge Holland run in All Elite Wrestling. However, I'm done with him in WWE, and I think WWE might be too.
Ridge Holland.
I think I'm not pitching this for the betterment of AEW realistically. I'm just pitching it for somebody getting a change of scenery. What I think I'm actually pitching here is the reality of what we talk about sometimes as the third promotion. A bunch of wrestlers that have kind of had their times and might need somewhere else to go, but WWE and AEW isn't the fit, in fact. So it might be that Ridge Holland will be best served going just somewhere else if he wants to stay in pro wrestling. He's been pushed on WWE's main roster in multiple iterations, in the Brawling Brutes, in stables, as a singles, to mix success realistically. He's then gone on to NXT, gone back to NXT I should say, and has been responsible for some of the weaker stuff on that show, somewhat ratings declines. There hasn't felt like a lot of development going on in his second developmental run, and I think that's okay. I think wrestlers can find different ceilings at different times in their careers, so maybe AEW offers him just something different. I'm not saying that he will be this sort of creative success story or anything, but maybe there is something that WWE's fairly rigid system is not yet unlocking in a guy like Big Luke, and he gets his go over there. I don't know.
You don't know, do you?
No.